I've been seeing a lot of misinformation flying around about the events and people I'm about to discuss. You know that Candace meme that's like, that's how I feel because sometimes y'all make me fed up. It's the nature of the internet to take something and run with it regardless of whether it's true or not. But as of today, and I know that there's more to come, but I've watched every single TikTok and video about the situation that's out there. So I honestly feel pretty informed in terms of the information that's currently available to us. So even though it is not my place or business, I would love to get everyone on the same page. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, Amanda, this situation is not about James Charles. You would be correct. However, unfortunately, he has in fact become a major player in this whole thing, and he has become a perfect example of something that has been really bugging me lately about cancel culture and like the whole pattern of it. It's exhausting to see the witch hunt that occurs every single time somebody does something wrong, and it lasts for like what, 2 minutes before we're on to the next person. I think there are a couple problems with this cycle. The first of which is that people use the term cancel to talk about someone who's receiving even the tiniest bit of backlash for something. That completely defeats the point of the term. If everyone is canceled at some point or another, then in reality, no one is. On a similar note, the backlash somebody faces when they're getting canceled is pretty much the same regardless of the circumstance, which is crazy when you think about it because someone who is committing an actual criminal offense is being treated the same way as someone who made like a slightly poor PR decision on a given day. So I don't really know if this is possible, but I would love to stop seeing the same people in headlines over and over again. It pains me to watch people get away with stuff, and it pains me to see people, I don't know whether they're forgetting about what they've done, I don't know whether they've forgiven them, but I feel like something's gotta change. Y'all, I need to share a harrowing journey that I went on recently. If you've ever wondered how scammers get your phone number or why your inbox is flooded with spam, it's because there are companies out there called data brokers that sell your personal data without your consent. And even though they're legally required to remove the info if you ask, they make the process super hard and confusing on purpose to discourage you from doing it. I recently tried taking it down myself, and after like 10 minutes of useless clicking, I wanted to just give up in frustration. That's why I recommend today's sponsor, Aura. They take care of the hard part for you by automatically removing your info from these sites and keeping it off. It was super scary to Google my name and see that my info is out there for anyone to find, and it made me mad knowing that these companies are making billions of dollars selling my info to marketers, scammers, and even stalkers. You may already have some sort of digital security tool, but Aura is much more than that. Not having Aura is like locking the front door but leaving the back door wide open. In addition to keeping your identity secure, Aura gives you fraud alerts for credit and banking, and has a secure VPN, antivirus, and password manager, and has US fraud experts available around the clock just in case something goes wrong. Try Aura free for 14 days at aura.com/Amanda Todhunter. In those 2 weeks, you'll discover where your data is being exposed and sold. I'm not leaving myself vulnerable, and you shouldn't either. Thank you so much to Aura for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to it. Let's dive into the recent situation. There's this influencer named Kayla Malik. Some of you may be familiar with her. Personally, I've never really interacted with her content or actually really knew her until this whole situation came out, but I did recognize her. I've probably seen her on my For You page on TikTok a couple of times because she has a really distinct look. She has the freckles, she has the nose piercings, so I don't know, maybe that's how you recognize her too, but regardless. About a month ago, she posted 2 different videos on her YouTube channel, both of which are 2 hours long, and they're called He Doesn't Love You Parts 1 and 2, where she details her 9-month experience of being in an abusive relationship. I've been seeing some really stupid comments on TikTok, and that's where I'm talking about like the misinformation. It's just a couple of TikTok comments that I've seen, but I feel like I've seen them over and over again, and one of them is people making the distinction between Evan Johnson, which is the guy in question, and Evan Johnston. First of all, you're wrong. It's Johnson without a T. I don't know where the T came from. Secondly, this is not productive whatsoever to the conversation, so stop it. If you've been following her before she posted these YouTube videos, you should know who Evan is because they were in a public relationship. And we know that she's talking about Evan because in her 2 YouTube videos, she tried to keep him anonymous, but she made a couple slip-ups here and there where she referenced his name. And you know, when this was released, I think fans of her were a little bit shocked because, like I said, this was a public relationship and this was all going on behind the scenes as we're seeing TikToks posted of them together. So very jarring, very scary, very, you know, I don't know, horrible. It's a horrible situation. I don't think he didn't have a following before. The only reason that he has any semblance of one now is because people know him because he's dating or was dating Kayla. I highly recommend you watch her 2 videos so that you can hear the story from her. But if you don't have time or I don't know, for whatever reason, if you want to see the evidence, it's at the very end of He Doesn't Love You Part 1. There's pictures and videos of her documenting the DV at the time. Obviously, trigger warning, those are really horrific to see. In her 2 videos, like like I said, Kayla went through a timeline of her 9-month relationship. She laid out the dates where the major violent incidents occurred, and unfortunately there were many. There seemed to be a pattern in which the guy would drink a lot for whatever reason, whether it be because they were going to a party or because they were going to a bar. Then the two would get into an argument about anything. Could be something small, could be something big, but eventually it escalated to the point where he would get physically violent. If you haven't seen the videos, you may be wondering why it takes 4 hours to tell the story. Like, that's, kind of a long time. Kayla's hoping that by detailing her story, by laying out the progression and patterns and trying to remember every single red flag, other people who are experiencing similar things will be able to hear this and recognize, that they're in a bad situation and that they need to leave. And for that, I'm very grateful that Kayla was brave enough to share her story, that she's brave enough to go to court against this man, which I believe she's currently doing today or maybe yesterday, depending on when this video gets put out. And the internet loves its drama, whatever you want to call it. It loves the spectacle, but I'm hoping that the main takeaway for the millions of people who are witnessing this unfold is a bigger awareness of what to look out for when entering a relationship. I cannot stress the importance enough of listening to your gut, of heeding the alarm bells, of leaving at the first red flag. I think red flag has lost a little bit of its meaning. People use it for random shit, but you have to understand that oftentimes these sort of relationships follow patterns. What Kayla was describing, how it started with verbal insults, he started raising his voice, then taking out his anger on inanimate objects around the house, being super controlling, needing to check her phone constantly, the paranoia of her constantly cheating, isolating her from her friends and family, and eventually becoming physically violent. All of those, every single one, are super common in DV cases. It's like textbook behavior. So towards the beginning of the relationship, what you need to look out for are the verbal insults, are, the controlling tendencies. And the thing about these is that they don't seem all that bad at first. They don't really seem breakup worthy. They seem like something that can be fixed, but chances are it'll escalate. You don't need to wait for a bigger reason to break up. You don't owe the person that you're with anything. Just please protect yourself and look out for yourself. If something in your gut is telling you it's not right, I guarantee you they're not the one for you. The one is not going to make you feel that way. Also, another thing that I wanted to point out is a couple times in Kayla's video, she mentioned something about him, pinching her or slapping her sunburn intentionally. And then she followed that by saying something along the lines of, oh, but that's not actually abuse. I totally understand why she would say that. It's a common misconception, but it actually is. When a lot of people think of DV, they think hitting and punching. The problem with that is if the harm that they're undergoing doesn't look exactly like that, it may be difficult to identify. This actually reminded me of a scenario not too long, I think it's over a year now at this point. I made the Dream SMP video, and in that video I talked about a situation where a creator named Shelby came out and talked about the harm that she underwent when she was dating this man named Wilbur. And when she was sharing her story, she talked about how he would do things like pinch her and bite her, which are kind of, I don't know how common those two exact things are, but in her mind at the time, it was an unconventional way of experiencing physical violence, so she didn't really know how to navigate that. But moral of the story, to reiterate, your partner should not be intentionally hurting you, period. It doesn't matter what form it takes. It's all awful and it's all wrong. They should not be doing that. Not long after Kayla's video was posted, the guy was arrested on a charge of domestic assault in violation of his probation. I'm not super familiar with legal stuff, so my question is, if he wasn't on probation, would he not have got arrested? He committed a crime regardless, right? So is the probation mention an explanation of why it happened so fast, or does that mean the charge will be more severe? I don't really know. But this whole process is just so difficult. So, my heart goes out to Kayla in this moment. Also, one more thing that I wanted to note is if you've never heard about or been in a situation like this, it may be hard to understand why a person doesn't leave. And I understand why you would think that as someone looking at it from the outside, but you also have to understand that there's a lot going on psychologically that makes it a lot easier said than done. I don't know if this is a horrible comparison, but I feel like this may be easier for some people to understand. If we're talking about something like addiction, I feel like a lot of people have sympathy for that because they understand that, obviously saying the words just quit, it sounds easy, but obviously it's not as easy as it sounds. So if you can understand that and have empathy and understanding for that, then I feel like you can understand this situation, which also has a lot of complexities. There's manipulation, there's psychological dependency, there's fear, there's emotional connection. And I also mentioned before that this stuff escalates. So at first, it may not seem like something to be overtly concerned about, and so you just keep overlooking it, and you are more inclined to overlook more because as time goes on, you feel more committed to the person and have overall stronger feelings for them. So the whole situation is very extremely difficult. So now that you have some understanding about that, we'll go into the aftermath, which is probably not really the aftermath. I feel like the true aftermath will come after everything comes out in court. But here are the things that Kayla revealed on TikTok and on her podcast after posting He Doesn't Love You Part 2. Kayla posted a TikTok saying, and I quote, "This girl who I thought was my friend, who I thought I could trust, gave him my address and my exact unit number, knowing the situation. A lot of people have been saying that the person in question who revealed the address to Evan was James Charles. However, according to what literally Kayla said, that doesn't seem to be the case. It was a girl. It was not James." Then, I think Kayla and Jacob Sartorius started a podcast, and in this podcast, she said that she found out at Coachella that a close friend of hers had fucked her over in ways she never could have expected. She was sent proof and receipts of this, and the person admitted it to her. This is important because I feel like that's a lot of people. So, we do have a little bit of a he said, she said situation at this point. But, when you take into account the evidence that Kayla posted of the DV, when you take into the screenshots that are slowly coming out and being shared by various people involved, I feel like it looks really bad for James. And the reason that I bring James up is because even though she didn't mention it in the actual clip, she liked a comment underneath that same video, and I think the person said James ? And she hearted it. So, that's pretty clear indication of who she was talking about in the video. She also said, I think it might have been in a different podcast episode, that she was offered 6 figures, potentially $250,000 in hush money to stop talking about the situation, and she didn't give any names or indication of who was offering her the money. Also, I've seen rumors going around that James paid for Evan's bail, which is not true. I said originally that we don't know if it's true or not, but James said it's not true, and Kayla's sister said it's not true. So also, I forgot to mention in the same TikTok where she liked the comment about the person being James Charles, confirming that she was talking about James Charles, the person who really fucked her over, and admitted to her for doing so. She also liked a comment that said something along the lines of, "Man, I was just starting to like James again." By the way, if you're out of the loop, go watch my Shane Dawson video. It'll, you'll be caught up then. Anyway, so then we get into another major figure of the story, Zach Sellers. So after Kayla and the guy broke up, he went back to Tennessee, which is where he's from, where he reached out to a guy named Zach. And he did that because Zach is in the modeling industry and he wanted to dip his toe into the water as well. Even though they were from the same town, they were never really friends or never really hung out in a major way until this moment where they started hanging out pretty much every single day. I mean, at that point, Evan had no one. All of what I'm about to say has come directly from Zach, by the way. This is his testimony in a way. He shared that originally he was on Evan's side, given that he was only getting his information from one side of the source. But then, after seeing Kayla's video, and actually his cousin came out to him and said that she underwent, a different experience, but was still traumatized by this man. He is now one of Kayla's biggest advocates. He realized that he was being manipulated and fed lies by Evan. And Zach said that Evan was so worried the entire time that they were hanging out about the idea of Kayla revealing her side of the story. And he was getting advice from this big influencer who has been through controversies himself, who we now know to be James Charles because Zach said it was. Zach was witness to phone calls between him and James, FaceTimes, Instagram messages. Apparently, James is using Instagram as his new Snapchat and using vanishing mode, which is essentially, he's reaping the benefits of Snapchat on Instagram now. Zach also had Evan's location and was able to screenshot it and see that he was at James's house, which I'll get to in a second. But anyway, going back to James advising Evan to make videos sharing his side of the story, Zach actually is the owner of these videos. He recorded them. It was saved onto his phone. Evan never asked for them back. And in these videos, Evan said things like it takes two to tango. It was a toxic relationship. They would both say horrible things to each other in the heat of the moment that they didn't mean. And hey, if it was so bad, why would she stay in the relationship for 9 months? Why would they do all these fun things like travel to Hawaii? After all, he was a nobody and financially dependent on her, so she didn't need him. This whole line of reasoning is so disturbing and yet so enlightening. It clearly shows where his head is at with the dependency and his own insecurities. Either he's trying to manipulate the narrative to make himself look better, or he's genuinely believing what he's saying. I think that the second option is scarier, but I could see either way of either case being true. I mean, now that the video is out, dude, you want to watch the evidence back and tell me with a straight face that it takes two to tango? Also, I don't understand how you can't have empathy or you can't even have understanding of her staying in the relationship when you did the same damn thing. If it was so toxic and if you were worried about her cheating on you throughout the entire time, you could have left too. Although maybe you couldn't have because you were leeching off of her. Also, I don't understand the logic at all. If she stayed with you for so long, aka 9 months, it means that you didn't do anything wrong during that time. But hey, buddy, newsflash, she did break up with you eventually. Care to share why? He's clearly a very disturbed individual if he's able to flip the situation and make himself the victim. But I find that that's often the case. People always feel that they're a victim. And now we get to the James Charles of it all. James Charles was friends with Kayla. They, collabed a couple times. I don't really know how close they were. Kayla said that they were close. James, if he ever makes a statement, probably is going to say that they're not. I don't really know, but he knew that Kayla and Evan were in a relationship, and I think that the three of them knew each other together, right? According to Zach, according to Kayla's friend, according to Kayla's sister, Kayla and Evan were supposed to collab with James, and coincidentally, James texted Kayla the day or the day after that her and Evan broke up. And so he was like, are we still doing this collab? And Kayla had to inform him, oh, by the way, no, we just broke up and here's why. A lot of people who are supporting and defending James are doing so under the assumption that James didn't know what Evan did. I don't see how that can be true at all. All these people are saying that that's not the case. And even if it was, why are you so quick to go after your friend's boyfriend that they just broke up with? Even if you took that isolated scenario, obviously that's not heinous, but it is not cool to do as someone that you're friends with. But let's not give James the benefit of the doubt. He clearly knew. Because also if he was friends with Kayla and was coaching Evan on what not to do, he would have had to have some sort of understanding of the situation, right? Even if Evan was feeding him lies, he knew Kayla before this all went down, unlike Zach, who didn't. It's not only in bad taste for so many reasons, it's predatory. I mean, this guy, James, he's 25, about to be 26 by the end of this month in a couple weeks. He's swooping in to take this 20-year-old man under his wing, and for what? James, like I said, was coaching Evan by, telling him to make the videos of him sharing his side of the story. He was also informing him not to speak on the matter, to stay silent for as long as possible. And then eventually, he invited Evan over to his house. Something must have alerted Kayla because she actually asked James if Evan was staying at James's house, and James lied straight to her face. He said, no, why would he? Why would he? But James is pleading ignorant for now. These are the screenshots Zach shared during the Be Better interview. Hello, I'm just now seeing these. I'm absolutely not on his side and would really, really appreciate it if you would leave me out of this. I only ever spoke to him because he manipulated me into thinking his situation was similar to what I went through. So it was a really personal and sensitive topic that I had empathy for. As soon as I saw Kayla's video, I felt disgusting and awful, as you should, and I've stopped responding to him altogether. He's obviously manipulating and lying to everyone. I should have never spoken to him, but you were in the car with him, so I don't think it's fair you're making a video accusing me of being some monster when he had you convinced too. I'm sorry I didn't see your messages previously. I wish I would have sooner, but I appreciate that you reached out to warn me. I'm at Coachella right now, but if you want to talk later on today or tomorrow, I can make myself available. We are not in contact. I'm assuming he's talking about Evan. I stopped responding right after her video. When he asked for advice, I originally did tell him he shouldn't respond because he's a fucking dumbass and would never be able to defend himself. Clearly, no, we know why. Coachella is my busiest time of year, so my DMs are insane. I genuinely didn't see them. I got tagged in your video on TikTok and that's how I saw them and responded back immediately. I really appreciate you reaching out. I wish I would have seen them sooner. I'm really sorry he treated you like shit. He definitely needs help from professionals. Right back at you, bud. Everything about this makes me sick. People are saying things along the lines of James Charles mass unfollowing. We should have listened to Tati. First of all, you guys are deeply confused. You kind of have to separate Dramageddon from James's own allegations to this, because Dramageddon with the whole Tati thing, or Dramageddon 2, I should say, Tati admitted to being manipulated by Shane and Jeffree, and that situation wasn't even about the whole James Charles Minors extravaganza, so I don't even think that's relevant. The difference is in the Tati scenario, her claims ultimately ended up being baseless, and James disproved every single one of them. So maybe that's why he had empathy for Evan, because he thought Evan was being falsely accused. But again, I don't know why he would think that or choose to believe that when he was told otherwise. But here's the thing. We've been down this same route before and it's been unsuccessful. So why do we think that this situation is going to be any different if we are responding and interacting in the exact same ways? Most of this video was filmed on Tuesday, May 6th, but as of now, May 7th, we seem to have gotten about as much as the picture I think we're gonna get, because pretty much the only person's testimony we were missing is James Charles's, and we just got that today. But despite that, I'm sure there will be more to come even after this video is posted. Pretty much a lot of the James Charles segment came from Zach's allegations that he made in the Be Better video. He did seem to have the support of Kayla, Kayla's friends, Kayla's family, because of the comments that they were making online as well. At the end of the Be Better video, Kayla was on FaceTime. I guess that was kind of just to show that everybody was pretty much in the know about this. So because of that, there do seem to be two major camps. On the one side, we have Kayla, Zach, Be Better, Kayla's friends, Kayla's family, and then on the other side we have James Charles. You know, at this point the problem is that the disagreement comes from the point in time where Evan and James were hanging out together, so we will never get Evan's side of the story though, because thankfully Kayla's legal battle went well and he's now in jail. She won. Great, amazing. I'm so incredibly happy for her. But yeah, so because of that, Evan is sort of out of the picture. James has broken his silence, saying that although he was told about the breakup and included this screenshot, which I'll read to you right now, James was like, "Do you want to be in a painted video with your man?" And Kayla responded, "I'm not even joking. This made me piss. I broke up with him fucking last night. I saw your story and was crashing out. LMAO. Tune in for the 30-part Who the Fuck Did I Marry series." And James responded, "What?" And she said, "Girl, he's fucking crazy." And James said, "What happened? Can I have him now?" If someone, James saying they're not close, Kayla saying they are, regardless, if someone tells you that they broke up with someone and your pretty much immediate response is, "Can I have him now?" Like, that's kind of crazy. Anyways, "Can I have him now? LMFAO. I'm so sorry, Kayla. You deserve better." And she said, "Imagine like the worst things a human can do to you. It would take hours to text it, but you'll see the series soon because what the fuck, LMAO. But thank you so much. Congrats on all the painted love." And James said, "Oh God, you're actually doing a series on it? I'm so sorry." And she said, "Just wait, because I gave this man a platform based off his lies and abuse. But I'm gonna wait to heal from it and then clock it." And James said, "Shit, I'm sorry, Kayla." And she said, "You're so good. Thank you, sister. Thank you, sister." And James said that the reason that he responded the way he did was because he didn't take it seriously. He thought it was a toxic relationship, thought it was like some sort of bad breakups, like messy for whatever reason. And I mean, you could see in the text that there's a slightly sarcastic air to the messages. But James, when someone tells you that they broke up with someone because they did the worst things a human can do, maybe pause and consider what that might mean. He also said again that he and Kayla weren't that close, which is kind of funny because I clocked that. If you remember early in this video, you know who also clocked that? Be Better. And oddly enough, Be Better made a TikTok right before James posted his own TikTok where he shared all of this stuff, pretty much predicting how James was going to frame the narrative, and he hit the nail on the head. Like, pretty much every single thing he said rang true, which is weird. I don't know what to do with any of this stuff, okay? I don't know. But, so this is what James is claiming now. James said that Evan reached out to him, fed him lies, as he did to Zach originally. James believed them, and then Evan was the one who asked to go to James' house, and which is why he was there, and he did in fact lie to Kayla about this, but at that point where he was lying, he realized he got himself into a sticky situation and he didn't know what to do at that point. But also, mind you, he did not provide screenshots for any of this stuff. He did not provide screenshots of any of the text between him and Evan. He provided screenshots of that text between him and Kayla. He also provided screenshots of the DMs between him and Zach. Here's the thing that I found that James was kind of weird. James scrolled all the way up to the top of the DMs between him and Zach, where Zach was, you know, being really nice to him and, you know, acting kind of like a fan, I guess. And then eventually he scrolled down to the point where he was responding, and those are the screenshots that Zach shared in the Be Better interview. So I guess that's my main question, like where's the text between him and Evan? And I feel like if I were to ask James that question, he would respond, "Well, there is no screenshots because we mainly communicated via phone calls, via FaceTimes, via Instagram vanishing mode, whatever the fuck." So I don't really know. I don't know what to do with that either. James also said that he is not trying to silence anybody. Who's offering her the $250,000 then? That's my question. This is the big kicker. James said that he was never physically intimate with Evan, nor did he ever pay him for it, nor did he have any involvement in the OnlyFans stuff. The fact that Evan started in OnlyFans in the midst of all of this, that is confirmed to be true. However, what Zach Sellers alleged is that James was the one who prompted him to do so and was actually a patron of that service. So this is what I'm talking about here. I took that out of the main segment because I wasn't super obvious about the fact that those were alleged, but now alleged. That's the biggest discrepancy between these two stories. Even if we had Evan to confirm or deny any of this, I really wouldn't trust anything that man said after everything he's done. What he also did in this TikTok was bash Zach and Kayla's friends for going on TikTok live and monetizing the situation. And listen, actually this morning, before James even made his video, I did see one of Kayla's friends capitalizing off of TikTok live and thought it was weird, but then James finished by saying he's suing Zach and anyone else that's spreading misinformation, which hopefully I'm not included in that. Allegedly, guys, allegedly. But here's the thing. I'm trying to curate what everybody has been saying so that we are all on the same page of where this information is coming from. To reiterate, what the real problem that we're dealing with right now is whether or not James was physically intimate with Evan. That seems to be, from what I can remember, the only major disagreement that's going on right now. And so when I was actually rewatching my video, what I was confused about is Kayla said that James admitted something to her. And I kind of assumed that that was the physically intimate stuff, but maybe it was the having Evan over at his house stuff. Watching this video back, I also realized that James, when he was texting Zach, said that he stopped responding to Evan after Kayla's video came out. And I believe in James's TikTok, he said that he cut ties before the video even came out. So I don't know, that's a discrepancy there. Is it important, is it not? I don't know, it's up to you. Kayla said that she was going to speak after, the whole court situation was over, which now I believe it is. It went a lot faster than I expected. I did not know what the normal proceedings are, but, thankfully she won, thank God. Ultimately, here's the thing, I'm biased, everybody has their own biases. I still think it's weird that James was told that Evan did the worst things a human can do, then chose to believe Evan when he allegedly reached out to James afterwards, despite that, okay? I think that's a little bit weird. And then James invited him over to his house when James has a history of seeking out younger men, okay? Those are the situations on James's side that I'm not super thrilled about. But yeah, that's that. I, for sure, have huge trust issues when it comes to big creators on the internet, especially after I started my whole drama recap series about a year ago. I feel like it's really opened my eyes. I said something in my Sturniolo triplets video, which was actually, I believe, my first drama-esque video. And I said something along the lines of, if I experience a massive surge of fame for whatever reason, then I would do the whole, common route of interacting with all of the LA people and mingling with everybody. But now, fuck no, hell no. Now I'm super extremely careful of who, I interact with, who I choose to support, whether directly or not. Because if you're making content with someone, even if you're not friends, you're still supporting them through your interactions with each other. You know what I mean? Through follows, through whatever the fuck. And then it comes down to when I'm making these YouTube videos talking about YouTubers and influencers who have done deplorable and heinous things, I find myself wondering what I actually want from them. The common consensus seems to be that whenever somebody does something wrong, all we want is for people to address it. All we want is a simple apology. All we want is a genuine, thoughtful apology. Not this shit, but an apology. Whatever metric people use to assess the validity and authenticity of such apologies is beyond me, because honestly, that doesn't make me feel better at all. Because don't you notice how it's the same people making apologies over and over again? You're expecting me to believe that this one is genuine even though all of the previous ones haven't been? They do something wrong, make an apology, disappear for a little while, and surprise, we're back again doing the same exact fucking thing as per usual, back to the regular scheduled programming. It's just tainted. The whole thing is so tainted and twisted. It would take a pretty special circumstance for me to take someone's apology at face value and for me to genuinely believe that they understand the severity of what they've done. Because A, I don't know them. B, it's a business move as much as it is a personal one. And C, so often the person apologizing doesn't actually do anything to show me that they've changed. I mean, well, here's the thing. An apology is a good start, but then it takes time and it takes a lot of growth. It's not something that's going to change overnight. Most of the time, people don't give me any indication or give me any confidence that when presented with the same situation, they'd respond differently, not because they're afraid of the backlash they'd face when getting caught, but because they know it's genuinely the right thing to do. I really don't see that all too often. A simple apology works for someone who'd, for example, made a distasteful joke back on Twitter when they were 14, but it seems to fall flat when the actual person in question has committed an actual crime or something along those lines, all the more so when seemingly no legal repercussions follow, and then they continue living on lavishly and unbothered until, somehow the people forget what they did and they're embracing them again. And I've seen y'all embrace James Charles. We are all fucked and nobody seems to care. And here's the thing, with this situation, at least the process for legal repercussions is already underway with Evan. I don't know what's going to happen with James, because I don't think in this whole scenario he technically committed any crimes, but it doesn't even matter because the whole thing is so fucked. I've noticed that I'm not inclined to forgive very easily. It's not in my nature. Not that it's even my place to forgive any of these people or whatever. They haven't done anything to me personally, but I think I've always subconsciously thought that there are things that people can do that are unforgivable in my eyes, and then when there's a pattern of behavior, it gets to a point. There's a limit, right? And here's the thing, the cycle of canceling the same people over and over only continues if we continue to support them through views, through interactions, through talking about them, through buying their products directly. And it's hard because on the one hand, I'm talking about him, I'm probably part of the problem, but also isn't it important to talk about them so people know why we're not supporting them? But honestly, ignoring them is probably the way to go, even though that's like kind of the hardest thing to execute on a large scale. But that was the original intention of cancellation, wasn't it? To stop supporting the people who have proven to not deserve it, and to actively try to invest your time and attention in the people who do. Anyway, that's pretty much all that's been revealed so far. I know that the small discrepancies about, for example, whether James did or did not pay bail, whether James was the one who leaked the address, don't seem all that important in the grand scheme of things, but it is annoying because it does highlight how quickly the internet can twist things and make something that's not true, you know what I mean? Anyways, I'm sure there's more to come. My heart goes out to Kayla right now, who is undergoing what I imagine is a brutal legal battle. I can't even imagine. But anyway, moral of the story, remember, the important takeaways are to protect yourselves in relationships, regardless of whether it's romantic or not, okay? This applies to pretty much everything. And also, invest your time in the people who you believe deserve it, okay? Anyways, that's all for today. I'll see y'all next time. Bye!